Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. Okay, so for everybody that I want to thank, first of all, before I even introduce you to the guest that I think I can honestly say I've waited a lifetime. This is going to be a lifetime of an adventure, a journey, and to introduce you to who is, well, probably not just maybe, but probably the most inspirational human being that exists in my life, who I've known my entire life. So before I even tell you, I want to thank the listeners around the world because I am blown away and overwhelmed with gratitude at the messages and the notes of people's lives all over the world that are being touched, being given hope, rekindled a spirit of whatever that is you're looking for, and that was the mission of the show. So I'm going to ask you, no matter what you do, I have a lot of people that run during their time of listening to this podcast. Love it. I'm also going to, I know there's families. There's a family, and I want to give a shout out to the family in Ukraine who sits down together to listen to this show. So I really want this time to be sacred because you're about to experience, again, I think, what I can honestly say is a moment that I've waited a lifetime. So today I get to celebrate, and I'm going to get emotional. I'm just going to warn everybody out there, you know how I am. I get to celebrate, and we're going to laugh a lot too, so just get over it. I get to celebrate truly the most amazing human being in my life, my baby brother, who came into my life many, many years ago. We won't give his age out just to protect the innocent. But I also want you to know that this person has changed my life for the better. And you finally get to hear from the extraordinary, the amazing, the brilliant, beautiful David, my baby brother, David Dastmalchian. Thank you, darling.
Hi everybody. Oh my gosh, it's such an honor to be on the show with my sister who is, the introduction she gave me is probably one that I'm going to record and play anytime I go on any interview show or ever do any introduction needed.
Good.
Thank you for that. But everything that you said and a million times over, the same back to you. This is such a huge moment to get a chance to sit down and just talk to you about the things that matter most to us in life and celebrate, the inspiration, the struggle, the journey. But, you are my inspiration. You're my angel, and you have, been there since I literally arrived on this earth. And a lot of people have strong relationships with their siblings. And I can honestly say that I have, three of the most incredible siblings on the planet, and they each embody such different and specific traits and strengths. And you, my sister, have always been a leader in our family of inspiring people and motivating people through the way that you live your life and the way that you have continued to always look for the good and always smell the roses and always find the glow in every moment, every day. And that's been hugely influential on me and the way I've been able to survive some of the darkest times of my life.
And I love you. And just the fact, as I'm listening to you, you're taking every word that I feel about you, and we are so blessed. I think that if the people listening to this, Dave, could walk away and realize no matter what's going on with your family, we all have stuff, right? If you are blessed enough to have a sibling, and maybe you haven't sat back and realized how fortunate we are. Maybe there's been some breakdowns. We, as a family, when I think about what's gotten us through our darkest times, it's been our siblings. We are so blessed. We have a sister, Heidi. We have a brother, Jeff. And the four of us, we're like our own little silent army, aren't we? We come together for each other, no matter what.
It's absolutely true. And how blessed we are that so many people through one another have now entered our lives as the spouses, the children of our siblings who are now getting to ages where they're becoming, part of the army, and they're not just kids anymore, like your sons, like Heidi's girls. And look at Jeff and Gracie's kids are the next thing you know, going to be full-fledged adults. And it's a beautiful thing. I've been taking a lot of inventory in the last 24 hours of my gratitude for my siblings and just for life in general, and the opportunity that we have to live this life, even in its darkest and most difficult times. I received some really sad news yesterday, very, very early in the morning. So it was basically a day and a half ago in the middle of the night. But a close friend, and I won't divulge names right now because this is all still so fresh, but lost a long battle with both mental illness and addiction in the middle of the night 2 nights ago. And I received the call from his sister. And I spent a lot of time on the phone with both his sister and his brother, because these are, people that I grew up with. And I have been, just we'll talk about it today during our conversation. Hopefully we'll have many more conversations to come in the future that we can share with your listeners. But a cause that's so important to me right now is, and will be for the rest of my life, is education, information, and spreading awareness about not only the raging battle that's happening right now with addiction in our country and in the world, but also the dual struggle of people who are battling both mental illness and addiction at the same time. And we won't have to jump right into that part of the story immediately, but that I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for you, if it weren't for Heidi and Jeff and Gracie and Steve and all of the people in the family and our friends who have become family too, because sometimes, we're born into blood, into family, and then some people are forged into our family by their actions and the way that they are there for us. People like John Bridges and Josh and Steve and so many other people we've loved who've come into our lives for these reasons. But I'm just taking a lot of inventory right now, and it's kind of perfect timing that we're getting to have this conversation because I can get caught up, as we all can, in this day-to-day, the frustration over, my schedule is so hectic right now. Oh my goodness, the baby has a checkup. I thought it was on Thursday and now it's today. And oh shoot, I screwed this up, or I forgot to pay this bill, or we didn't use this food. The little things that we can allow to become, things that really raise our blood pressure, that really cause us to breathe differently, that cause us to lose our temper when we're driving. And when you give yourself the gift of that time in the day to pull over, or to, and literally or figuratively just pull over on the side of the road, even if that means sitting down in your backyard and thinking about the many, 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 many reasons to be grateful. And not everybody has to, have such an extreme example. Mine happens to be that I nearly lost my battle against addiction and mental illness. So my gratitude for you and for this opportunity that I've been given in life is a huge one. But I also can thank God and thank, the opportunity and the blessing of those little things throughout the day. And that's something you've been such an inspiration for in my life. And so I'm just, given the events of the last 24 and 48 hours, being able to sit here and talk to you means more than you even know. So thank you again for having me on.
And babe, I had no idea. And, I had a missed call from you the other day and we were out of town. So one of the things we've always been for each other, all of us, is that when there's the red flag call or the text, I need to talk, right? Like whenever there is, we've all been there for each other through that. And the timing is quite apropos. And I will talk after this is over because I don't know who this is at this moment, but I know that so in the midst of something horrific, again, look at who they reached out to. Look at who they called, because you continue to be this pillar, Dave, of authenticity, of reality, of brilliance, but you always come from that place. Like when you just said, pull over and like, don't let the busyness of life. That's how you've chosen to live. You've always been able to pull the car over and go. And with your beautiful family by your side or whoever's with you going, let's just stop and look at that beautiful scenery. And that's how you've lived your life. And I truly believe it is one of the greatest gifts you give people. And, you brought it up and I was thinking this morning, there's so many amazing, magical things, but the thing that's been most powerful and passionate has been your desire. Although you've become incredibly successful pursuing your passion, which I want everyone to know, you've never given up on your art and your passion to serve this world through your artistic gifts. You've also been able to survive one of the most horrific things that most people don't survive. And we're going to talk about it because you believe so passionately about, I'm not hiding from this crap. I've got to get real and help others because you never know, right? That day could be too late. And I was thinking about the moment I got the phone call, but I want to go back before that because I think the education starts with Dave. When I think about you as a little boy, and I want the world to know that it was like I was, and we love our parents. Our parents were very busy doing what they do. We always laugh and go, there is no such thing as a not dysfunctional family, right? I hate it when people go, right? I mean, there's no such thing as perfect. We're all dysfunctional. It's what do we do in the midst of taking that life and making it rich and growing from it. So, when I think about though, when you were little and a little boy, you were just the light of my life. Like I got to be like that second mother and I was just old enough that I got to do a lot in helping mom take care of you. And I think it had a lot to do with, you remember the moment I found out I was pregnant and all I dreamed of was having a little boy. I wanted a little boy because I wanted a little you. And I don't even know if you really know that, but I remember going to a Goodwill because we didn't have a lot of money. And I remember going to buy baby boy clothes and I found what I could. And I went home and I laid down and laid them all over me because I was so wanting a little boy.
So excited.
I know, just because I wanted to. But when you think about let's go to the childhood because you lived a really surreal little childhood. And we want to talk about awareness and education. We had no idea. I had no idea. When I went off to college, that was the hardest thing, was leaving you behind. We would write each other. I have all the letters we wrote each other, and I would come back because I just needed to see you. But unbeknownst to me, the darkness started, and this can happen to a lot of families and parents, right? We're so busy dealing with our own crap and going through their own divorces that they missed what was happening.
Right.
And I mean, we can go as graphic as you want, but I mean, this addiction started, I didn't know this till rehab, but what, 8th grade?
8th grade. And the depression started 6th grade. I think that my first ideations of, feeling so morose, so sad, so overwhelmed with depression. I wrote my first goodbye letter in the 6th grade. And that, we can analyze the reasons why and how this comes to be for the rest of our lives. And I know, and we will, and we'll talk about, and I think that the specialists, the researchers, counselors, spiritual, teachers, so many other sociologists are trying, will try to understand and get to the root of where this comes from and the mix between both what we're born with chemically in our brains and what causes depression and also what is brought on by, family dysfunction, abuse, all the things that take place around America and around the world every day behind what are very often the most glamorous, if not glamorous, at least the most cookie cutter, leave it to beaver doorsteps. I think that in our community we had 3 at that time, very high achieving, popular, successful kids, 2 parents who everyone thought were just a wonderful, couple, and who knew behind the doors that there was a lot of darkness and a lot of anger, and there was a lot of sadness and sorrow. But I had this great gift in being the baby of the family and being so much younger than my siblings.
Just say that again. Did you want to say that one more time? It's just so much.
And my siblings, but getting the gift that I got to watch each of you thrive fall, pick yourselves up, thrive, find your gifts, find your strengths, find your passions, find your, paths. And I got to and I think that's where the storyteller in me began. One of the things that began in me, in my passion for storytelling, it was, of course, dealing with some of the depression and the sadness in our parents', really bad divorce and some of the really darker things that took place in our home when we were kids. I internalized a lot of that. So I found a lot of escape in film and theater that I loved. I loved that nature of storytelling, but I also loved the nature of storytelling that I still carry with me today, which was in the observance of you and Heidi and Jeff and my fascination with you guys and you going on your adventures around the world. I mean, you were, a teenager still when you were already writing your lists and goals and figuring out how you were going to get to travel the world and how you were going to work on a cruise ship and how you were going to live in the middle of the ocean. And for a couple of kids from Kansas, it's kind of extraordinary if you think about it. So early in that period of my life, and we're talking young, I was starting to already feel that dark claw of depression, creeping up inside of me and telling me that I'm not worthy, that life is going to be too hard, that that I'm a burden on people, and writing letters to you, writing in my journal was a healthy escape, and not even escape. I would say a healthy processing tool, and also a healthy way of making some sense of the puzzle pieces. But then, by 8th grade, I think, Holly, it might have been even 7th grade, was the first time that I got drunk. But feeling that peace and tranquility, that false sense of security, that false life raft that you think you found the first time that you can escape from your problems with a drink of alcohol, or that calming effect that we, look so forward to when it comes to a joint or a glass of wine, whatever it is. To me, the combination of that with my mental, state over the years, just insidiously, darkly, surreptitiously just crept in, and they became fully dependent upon one another. And that is the wicked, evil curse that is, addiction. And so, yeah, by the time it was high school, I was not in detention, at least not very often. I think I got in trouble a few times. I was a high achieving,
yes,
just like you were, young man who was on his way to do great things. And I also was someone who was self-medicating every opportunity that I could. And that was mostly in high school through alcohol, but also through pot. And then, as you know, by the time that I went to one of the most prestigious university acting programs in the world, I was on top of my game. I felt, closer to my family and my friends than ever. I'm still in my private alone time nurturing, or I should say, wrestling with this depression, which seemed only satiated by substance. And then, and I was 18 when I first found the power of the escape of opiates. And, opiates are right now at an all-time high. They're killing more people than ever. And it happens very often where someone who's 18, like I was, tries it their first time and that's it. They're done. Their heart stops. It's over. But there's also those like myself who enter into a long 13-round battle with something that is almost next to nearly as the odds tell us impossible, but as you and I know, not impossible to beat, to overcome, and that there is a way. We haven't figured it out. We don't have the full answers right now. You and I can't sit here and tell somebody who comes to us, well, what do I do with my kid? I can give them a strong playbook, and I can definitely advocate for them in every way and tell them what worked for me and what didn't work for me. But the only thing that I know after all of this is that we're nowhere near where we should be and where we can be and where we will be, and that we can never give up on people, because you never gave up on me. Never. You never gave up on me, even when I was in my worst, and neither did other people in our family and people that love me. And even if they couldn't allow me to, practice my behavior at their home, or by giving me money when I would beg for it. If they had to cut me off in those ways, the one thing that I was never cut off from was being told that we love you and we believe in you and we're here for you. So, it took me several tries, as you know, but by the time I was finally ready to go get help, there were my sibs, there were my angels right there, ready to go. And
I know.
So we keep going back to this gratitude, and these days like today where I can forget or I can get lost, or like yesterday where I was feeling so sad for this loss in my friend's family and the struggles that they're going through. And I think that we have, you and I and myself, I just think every day I have so much to be grateful for, that I get an opportunity to still be alive here. And it doesn't give me a sense of guilt. Like a lot of people, I think, carry a burden like, okay, I made it out. 90% of other people struggling with the same thing as me, according to statistics, don't. So I don't think I'm driven by a sense of guilt, but I do feel a healthy burden, like a little additional weight in the backpack of a calling. It's even yes. Bigger than a responsibility. It's because I don't feel a responsibility. My responsibility is to my family and to take care of myself and to work my program and to be a healthy individual and to be the best person I can be. To give back and to try and educate and to try and reach out to others who are struggling it's not a responsibility. It's a calling, and it's something that I feel is an honor to get to do, because it doesn't only just refill my reservoir, but like I said, when I meet with people who are struggling, I can't give them the answers. What I can give them is some of my time to sit down and show them my phone and show them pictures of me and you, surprising you for your birthday party, or my kids, at the park, and the potential for a life, just a normal, beautiful, simple life that exists for those people that don't think it's possible.
Who don't think. And that reminds, when I was with you back in March, and I mean, there's so many, this journey, and if for people to know, there's so much here. And I think that one of the questions I would ask is, I want to talk about the man on the corner that you were holding Arlo, and you sat down with Arlo in your arms, and you saw the tracks in his arms, and mm-hmm. you knew that in that moment that you may not be able to save his life, but you can show him what life can be like. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. I'm walking into the Ralph's on Van Nuys and Burbank Boulevard in the Valley. And, this young guy who looked like me when I was 22, kind of crouched down, by the entryway with a little sign. Maybe he wasn't. I don't even remember if he had a sign, but he definitely he was in a bad way. And we always try and keep some singles in the glove box just in case there's something. I didn't have anything on me, and we're on our way back out. And I think he asked, do you have $1 or something? And Arlo and I, crouched down with him, and we talked to him for a few minutes, and I said, I'm not going to pretend to know why you're here, what the reason is or anything, but I do feel like I see myself in you. I said, I don't know what your story is, but just so you know, I was a heroin addict who lived on the street. And, so for whatever reason that you're here today and that you're asking for money, I have no judgment. And I don't care. I just want you to know that this is possible. I'm sitting there holding Arlo, who's just, in one of his beautiful moments, just angel, and smiling at this guy and hugging me. And we looking at some pictures on the phone, just because I think you need to know it's possible.
Yes.
When I was in that position, I didn't believe it was possible. I believed my story was over, like that we were at the final chapter, and now I was just biding time until I was going to OD or get thrown in jail or rot away somewhere. And the same goes for the families of these people. They don't know, when is this end in sight? How many relapses is it going to take? How many broken promises are we going to have to go through before this person, before we start to see some healing and recovery? And the answer is nobody knows. It's like with cancer, there's people that diagnosed with the terminal tumor, they get hit with every every treatment there is in the book. And 6 months later, they're on 60 Minutes as this miracle story. And there's the next guy in the next bed who they try everything and it just doesn't work. It's incredibly infuriating and frustrating, but you have to know there's hope. And so we had a really good interaction, and he thanked me, and I felt like it meant something in there. It planted some seed that, like, if you want it, the resources are out here for free to get you back. If you want them, they're there and they're waiting. And as we walked away, Arlo over my shoulder said, "I love you." And this guy looked up and, no.
That was
it
the
happened
moment.
to us one other time where we were in Hollywood, and Arlo and I were watching construction off like Hollywood Boulevard in Gower. They were doing this big demo on a building, and
you guys are just sitting there watching it, right? I can see you guys.
Construction. I mean, he loves watching construction. Remember, Jake used to love watching bulldozers and just, Bob the Builder, and Donovan loved that stuff. So we're sitting there watching this, and I hear a rustling behind us, and there's a couple in the bushes wrapped up in blankets I can see the paraphernalia on the ground around them. There's needle caps and some burned bottle caps from shooting up, and they were embarrassed, and I felt embarrassed, or nervous, because you just immediately your fight or flight kind of kicks in because you're there holding your baby, and I realized instantly, like, well, they're no harm to us, and we're obviously no harm to them, and we just said, hi, and we started to walk away. And Arlo, the same thing. He reached over my shoulder. He said, hey, I love you. And sometimes people just need to hear that as well. They don't need to hear
anything else.
Get off the street, get off my corner. They need compassion.
Yes. And you know what, babe? That's exactly. And you just keep saying it. And that's what you keep telling people. It's like, if you have one person that loves you, trust, like, believe in the people that love you, because without, you want to give up. You just want to throw the towel in. But I have to say, babe, is that, for the people that may have a family member or may have a sibling or may have a child, it went so under our nose. It went so under the radar that what I will always remember that was the day that was pivotal for me in this journey with you was, and there's been so many glorious moments, like watching you pursue your desire for acting and giving you opportunities to expand on that, and your writing gifts, right? And then you wrote the director of Phantom of the Opera, I think, one day. Like, all these things you've done to keep
I was a little kid, I wrote Les Miserables. I wrote the producer of Les Miserables, and he wrote me back. Can you believe it?
Oh, I remember that. You were so young then, but those were the moments. And I love that you brought up the writing, because unbeknownst to you back then, and now we know with therapy and all the greatness, how important writing and journaling is. You didn't know that consciously. You were writing because it was the outlet, and it was a way for you to get your creative out, or you're writing me letters or writing everything. So in some ways, the therapy, by the gift of someone much greater than us, right? A God looking over you, that therapy was happening and may have saved your life at some point. But the day that I got the phone call, this is the part I want people to know, is that truly, how do we create this awareness, Dave? Because I remember sitting in my kitchen where I was sitting when I got the phone call that you were in the state hospital and had tried to take your life, and how fast could I get there? And I'm in Kansas, you're in Chicago. I had no idea when I called the siblings what we were walking into. We had no idea. And truly, and I mean, I know we can say this in just now, but it was like going into the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest. I mean, they kept taking us to the next level of security, and we're like, where the hell are we going? Where is my brother? All I did was cry from the moment I hung up till I got on the plane to get there. And like, I need to see you. I need to know you're alive. Like, what's happening? No idea. The heroin addiction that was happening in your life, that the demons had taken you to this degree. So as much as we don't want to revisit that moment, I do think it's important for people to know what signs were there. How could we have known? What could we do? What could the sister do that called you yesterday? Is there anything we can do? How do we see it?
I think that there's not on the on the individual, like there's the signs that we look for are it's difficult. Because who are we spending enough time with? Generally, when we see people who are, especially once we get out of the house and once you get through, like, I mean, if we had been living together, obviously you would have seen a lot of signs sooner. When would we see each other? We'd see each other at weddings, holidays,
True.
family get-togethers. Well, at those times, people who don't have addiction and alcohol problems are going to get tanked because that's what people do when they're celebrating. And so you don't think like, well, this guy stands out more than this guy, because you just don't notice that. People are celebrating. That's a normal part of life that most normal people can do who aren't struggling with, mental illness or addiction issues. So I think that there's really not, if you were to say like, well, what could we have done differently? How could things have played out differently? I can say onto our parents, I think that, the way that our house was run as kids could have been done a lot differently. I think that the introduction of healthy, balanced, proactive, positive living through, either talk therapy or, there was a lot of options and tools and skills that could have been implemented going back. Because there was, denial was just a big part of the play that our family was taught and rehearsed and very well versed in. And unfortunately, that carried on into all of our adult lives, just in different manifestations. So I don't think that there's anything, I was talking to my friend's sister, who is also a friend of mine, and she was saying, but if I could have, and that is a moot point. What we can do is the general conversation, like the bigger awareness, the greater awareness, the bigger conversation that is both about addiction and is also about and mental illness has a lot of stigmatisms to it. So I'm going to break that down. When I say struggle with mental illness, no, I'm not a schizophrenic. No, I'm not on, antipsychotics. No, but depression is it's an illness. And we as a society, in my opinion, and where I stand right now as my walk in this world, is need to really revisit how we discuss and how we talk about and how we deal with depression, anxiety, fear. It rules so many people that I love and care about's lives, and they won't even, you couldn't even bring it up to them. They would say, no, I don't need to see a therapist. I don't need a psychiatrist. And I want to say to them, but look at, and the way that so many people in this world are, let's say, if they're not just holding themselves back from their truest potential, actually hurting themselves, hurting members of their family without even knowing it, that's destructive. And it doesn't always manifest in drug and alcohol abuse. It did for me because that was my self-medicating way. Some people it's through food. Some people it's through exercise. Some people it's through work. Some people it's through sex. Some people it's through religion, for goodness sake. It can be a lot of different ways that we manage our. So I should say, I think there was nothing to have been done differently on behalf of my siblings, on behalf of my friends, on people who were around me in school. I mean, I was a master at hiding this. Think about the people that I was in school with.
Yeah.
Every day. I have a group of friends that we started a theater company together. They were there. They were right there with me as soon as I was in the hospital. I mean, Jimmy and Jason and John and Kelly and John Bridges, so many of these people who are family to me, I was with every day, Holly. And that's, I was so good at getting my drugs, taking care of medicating myself in the morning and then living a life that, if I think in general in society, we were having bigger, broader, more in-depth, more compassionate conversations, if we were starting to strip away the shame and the feelings of failure for those who are out wrestling with and struggling with their depression, their extreme depression, their mild depression, their extreme anxiety, their mild anxiety, their dependency on either drugs or alcohol. If there was a way in our society that we could open those conversations up, I think that maybe could have helped me lift some of the shame and embarrassment that I would have had asking for help sooner. But that's my putting the onus on our society at large and putting that on all of us, everyone listening right now, everyone who has someone that they care about, everyone who's struggling themselves. opening up the conversation. And I do it mostly through, trying to write stories still, but I like to go speak. I like to, when I have an opportunity to talk to people in group settings, but we have to do it with our kids.
Yes.
We have to support, our schools, educating our kids on both, mental health issues as well as addiction issues, and the education on that, as opposed to the shaming on that, is tantamount. Because
totally agree.
Going back to like when I was, talking, if I would call you and you would ask me, how's it going, babe? How's school? Tell me the latest and greatest. Who are you dating? Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. We'd have these great conversations. And I would get off the phone and I would, you feel when you're an addict, you carry so much shame with you. And as soon as you start to come down, as soon as your medication, as soon as if that was your choice of antidepressant starts to wear off, and you start thinking about, oh man, I'm such a phony. They don't know the real me. Then you want more. You don't have the impulse to go talk about it because you've been plugged up with so much shame and guilt over your lifetime. And now we know so much more than we did in the 80s, in the 90s, when schools were trying to educate kids about drugs and alcohol through fear tactics or through shame tactics. And it's such a deeper, more complicated conversation than that.
Well, and you just keep using the same words. There's words that I think are really profound right now, darling, and that's shame. The shame, the guilt, to not feeling loved for who we are, maybe feeling we aren't worthy. And I think men, women, this is so non-gender bias, and this is children today living in homes who parents aren't realizing are the children feeling loved for just who they are, not for how they perform, right? Mm-hmm. It's huge. To show up and be the person you are versus who you're having to prove you are to the world. And I think so much of that, it goes on our shoulders. And then, like you said, it began to fester. It was like a poison, a toxin that just started eating at you. And it got to your mind. And then what did you do to anesthetize that, right? And to help make that feeling go away. And then it just got worse and worse. And I never thought about that, right? Like you're right, not seeing someone day in and day out. And yet you were a master at it with the people closest to you. And by the way, yeah, you had a full ride scholarship to one of the top schools in the world. You were brilliant at what you do. And then when you did tell me afterwards, and this is important too, I don't want anybody to miss this, because when all of this really came out and we started having a lot of conversations, and Dave, when I went to try to get you into rehab, you talk about, and I want people to know, heroin is one of the toughest addictions. Nobody wants it. No, I had to fight. I had to beg rehab places and just literally cried my eyes out and going, I'll pay whatever it takes, right? Here's 2 credit cards. And they said, we just can't do that. We can't take them because we don't have success. And it's like, you just sit there and you go, you're giving up on a human being. But finally getting, when you got there, and one of the things I want people to know, and you remember this clearly, I never hid anything from the boys. Jake and Levi, we would come visit you every weekend, and they knew we were coming. We called it drug camp, going to see Uncle David, and we would bring you your nutty bars, right? And they saw the bandages on your wrists from the really bad cuts, and they knew that I said, we're going to talk about everything. Yep. I am not hiding this. And I want parents to know that's your choice. I'm not telling you what to do, but I am so sick and tired, Dave, of people living behind their damn closed doors and acting like everything's great. And God forbid, like, oh, we're going to stay married in this sick marriage for the kids. I mean, they don't realize that they're actually hurting the kids worse. There's so many things we could take from this, but by God, talk to your kids. Stop living in this little hidden bubble that, oh, everything's going to be okay. And, oh, I don't want them to know that my brother or my sister or my aunt or uncle. No, bullshit. And I'm saying it just like that. Yep. I believe, yep. And I showed those boys, we came, we love you. They love you more than anybody in this world, right? Like, who do they live for? Uncle Dave. They got talking to you. We talked about it all. And you know what? To this day, they've made some serious decisions in their life, based on what they saw. Yeah, and they're very close to you. They call you when they're even struggling with something, right? Yeah.
Of course. And that was turning over a new leaf for our family's tradition. And it was huge. And it is to me the most important part of my journey now, because now I'm a father, and my wife and I, we talk very often about, so how we address this, and my wife has my back every way, every step, just the same way that you approached it, which is we are open, we are honest, and there is no more hiding, and there's no more shame. There's so many things when we were raised that had to get hidden, that had to be buried. And what people don't realize is when you do that, when you teach your children that you put those things away, we bury them, we hide them, we throw them in the shed out back. And we're talking like this is all over the country. It's not just our family, but abuse of all kinds, and shame, and really dark things. They don't go away. They pile up, and they pile up, and how they come out is so harmful. And even if you get yourself 5, 10, 15 years of, see, this is great this way, we can just pretend that this isn't happening. We can pretend that this didn't happen. We can pretend this isn't going on. It comes, and it comes with a mighty force. And so the best thing we can do for our kids is, empower them, raise them to be the compassionate, kind human beings that we know they have the potential to be, but in an honest and open dialogue. And that's going to be hard for me all the way. And it's why I'm so grateful again that I have Eve, that I have you, that I have my family and my friends who will back me up every time, I get nervous about being as and also something for people out there listening right now to know. You're struggling with addiction right now, or someone in your family is struggling with addiction right now. The way that I've handled my years since, now we're 15 years in
15?
recovery and cleanliness, 15 years. The miracle that is for me does involve going out and talking and being public about it. But I need you all to understand that's not necessarily the way that it's going to work for you. So you also anonymity is a huge and sacrosanct part of recovery. And there are people who are actors, who are writers, who have no need and have no calling to have to tell the world about what they've gone through, because their recovery is their recovery. So for me, that's part of my journey. That's part of my thing, is being able to go out and talk to people and show them, like, this is what I went through. This is who I am. But I just need everybody to understand and know that if you are, toying with the idea of embarking on recovery, but you're really not comfortable with your anonymity, being broken, no, that is not a requisite. It's not required. It's just something that has worked in my journey. Okay. And there are, like I said, I know people who are very successful, and they're not shortcoming their recovery by not talking about it publicly. They have their own call, their own path, their own walk, and they're giving back in their own different ways. So
I love that.
Please know that is not on you if you decide to take this journey, that you have to be doing podcasts.
And talking about, well, what people need to realize, this is the first time we have ever talked to any degree publicly about this together. And we made this choice. And because this has been a mission on my heart in any way, shape, or form that we can help other human beings, that one person sitting in the dark closet right now and who's living with the darkness around them, if they can get light and hope from this, Dave, that's why we're doing this. And we're willing to share, right? Like, I got clean about a really abusive, dark time in my past 28 years ago, and didn't realize that the time was now to talk about this stuff so that people feel they're not alone. Right. And you're not alone. And what's fascinating too is, and I want people to know this, is that you have gone on to continue. I mean, you have an incredible life. You have a beautiful wife who has been the biggest dream to our family and to you. And I watch you really, someday I think you guys should be running around and talking about great marriage, because you two exemplify two people loving and supporting each other and saying, we're going to support each other through hell and high water. And we're there for each other no matter what. It's what I love about watching the two of you, and how you've just had your second beautiful child. And right, you have this beautiful family. But during this process too, you wrote your first screenplay that you wrote years ago. And I'll never forget sitting with you in LA this is several years ago, when you were contemplating, is it time for me to make this film? And this film was monumental in bringing this awareness. And it's to this day still one of the most beautiful movies ever. And, Animals, the film, which is really, about this story. You wrote this screenplay after you got clean and you healed. And look at the labor of love. Look at the people that came out of the woodwork. You created the most magnificent, beautiful film. And the people that wanted to do this because they believed in you and they believed in the story, right? Like, it was amazing.
Yeah, no, that we should do a podcast about animals, or about, people working and trying to manifest because you were there with me through that whole journey. I fought so hard to get that film made. And then all of a sudden, when it was about time to get that film made, I had a complete crisis of faith where I was so nervous about how this film was going to be introduced to the public. And it's a small, labor of love, independent film. But even so, I knew that was going to involve press and interviews and talking about the film and where did the film come from and how did you come up with this idea? And, thank God for you. And oh my God, Eve was so adamantly supportive and strong about saying you really should tell people where this came from. And Mary Pat Bentel, our producer, and Colin, obviously one of my best friends and our director, and so many others who were just like, no more hiding. It's time. Speaking of hiding, somebody's knocking on the closet.
Oh, I love it. Oh, wait. Okay, wait. Let him come in because he has to. He's been so good. And he's my beautiful godson, Arlo, who we love. And Dave, this will be a wonderful way to wrap this one. And then because I know we're going to do let's just keep going. We're going to do some more podcasts. There's so many stories and so many celebrations, but I need to hear his voice. Is he in there yet?
Here he is. Say hi, Ann. Hi, Ann Holly.
Hi, Holly.
Hi, Arlo. I love you.
This is one of the greatest gifts of my 15 years of sobriety. My beautiful boy Arlo, and now our beautiful girl Penny. And Holly knows that Arlo just thinks she walks on water, right?
Well, he's my baby, and we have to do this. And I'm doing this live on this podcast. But Arlo, Aunt Holly is giving you cheek juice, so make sure you get those cheeks up to the microphone. Mwah.
She's smiling.
Cheek juice. David, after we wrap just tell everybody, what are you most excited about right now? Because we're going to do more of these. What's on the horizon?
Very, very excited about. No, don't touch that button. My upcoming film, All Creatures Here Below, we made in Kansas City, which is where you and I grew up, and I'm very proud of it. It deals with another whole segment of darkness and shame.
Daddy, that button.
That button.
Oh, you sound so cute.
And I'm very, very proud and excited of this next journey now that we have a little girl and raising a woman in this really difficult time that we're living in, where it's tough to be a woman. And I'm excited at the challenge with my amazing wife and my amazing family to empower and support a young woman as she, makes her journey into this world.
Oh, she's so blessed to have you.
Yes.
Oh, darling.
Love
all right.
you.
I love you so much. We're going to do another one. Bye, Arlo.
Okay.
I love you.
My finger.
Yeah, his finger is kissing you, Aunt Holly. She's blowing you kisses.
I love you.
Thank you. And thanks to all the listeners. I love you, sis. You're the best.
I'll talk to you soon.
So much.
All right.
Okay.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.